Ah, a fire on a night like this. There's nothing quite like it. But it's funny, we don't even think about it, really. Fire is just there for us, ready when we need it, waiting to be lit. It's part of the order of things. But that wasn't always the case. Once, long ago, there was a time when fire didn't belong to mortals. It was kept away, hoarded, guarded. The world was colder then, darker. And if not for one particular trickster, well, we might still be shivering in the dark. Real change never comes from the ones who follow the rules. It comes from those who dare to break them. It comes from those who play the trickster. And none played this game better than Coyote. Once, long ago, before the world was as it is now, the nights were cold. The people shivered in the dark, their breath freezing in the air. Because back then, fire did not belong to everyone. No, fire belonged to the fire beings. Strange, secretive creatures who kept their flames hidden inside a great mountain, far from the hands of man. And so, the people suffered. They huddled together for warmth, their stomachs empty, their nights endless. Then came Coyote, clever, fast, a trickster to his bones. And if there was one thing he couldn't resist, it was mischief. Why should the fire beings hoard all that warmth? He thought. Surely they can share a little. One night, when the fire beings were gathered around their flames, laughing and warm, Coyote crept close. He waited, silent as a shadow, until one of the fire beings looked away. That was all he needed. Coyote leapt forward, snatched a burning branch in his teeth, and ran like the wind. The fire beings shrieked in fury and chased him, their feet pounding against the earth. But Coyote, he was too fast, too clever. He didn't keep the fire for himself, no, he passed it along. He threw it to Squirrel, who darted up a tree. Squirrel tossed it to Frog, who hid it beneath his wet skin. Frog passed it to Hawk, who carried it high into the sky. And one by one, they kept the flame moving, until at last, fire belonged to everyone. And that, my friends, is how we got fire. You ever notice how the greatest gifts always seem to come from someone breaking the rules? Coyote didn't ask permission. He didn't wait for the fire beings to share what they had. No, he took it. And that's the thing about the trickster. He is not a builder. He is not a king. He is not a warrior who fights battles to defend the world as it is. Trickster is the one who changes the world, whether anyone likes it or not. Because the world needs him. Without the trickster, there is only order. No surprises, no disruptions. Things stay the same. And maybe that sounds nice, but tell me this. How many great things in your life happened because something went wrong? How often does a mistake, a detour, a disaster, a bit of mischief lead to something better? That's the trickster's lesson. He doesn't create peace. He doesn't maintain order. He creates movement. But not all tricksters are generous. Not all of them steal for the benefit of others. Some of them, well, some of them are only in it for themselves. Let me tell you about Loki. Once, in the early days of the gods, Asgard was vulnerable. It had no walls, no defenses, just open land, waiting to be attacked by giants. And so, one day, a stranger arrived at the gates. I will build you a wall, the stranger said. A mighty wall, tall and unbreakable, strong enough to keep out any giant. A tempting offer. But the gods were no fools. And what is your price? Odin asked. The stranger smiled. Give me the sun, give me the moon, and give me the goddess Freya to be my wife. The gods almost laughed him out of Asgard. Impossible! Ridiculous! No mere builder could complete such a task. But Loki leaned in, a smirk on his lips. Let him try, he said. But on one condition. He must finish in one season, and he must do it alone. It was a trick. No one could build such a wall in so little time. The stranger agreed. And Loki sat back, pleased with himself. The first rule of the trickster. He always thinks he's the smartest one in the room, until the room proves him wrong, because the builder was also a trickster. He was no mere man. He was a giant, and he did not work alone. He had a mighty stallion of his own, who could haul stone faster than 10 men combined. Day by day, the wall rose, and suddenly, the gods were not laughing anymore. As the deadline drew close, panic set in. If the wall was finished, Freya, the sun, and the moon would be lost. And so, the gods turned to Loki. Fix it! And so, the trickster did what he does best. On the final night, Loki transformed himself into a mare, sleek, beautiful, glimmering in the moonlight. He pranced past the builder's horse, flicking his tail, luring it away. The great stallion chased after him, leaving the builder alone, unable to finish the wall in time. When the sun rose, the gods saw that the wall was unfinished, and the deal was broken. The builder, enraged, revealed his true giant form, and was swiftly struck down by Thor's hammer. Asgard was saved. The wall remained, and Loki, well, some months later, he returned with an unexpected child, a peculiar little foal, one with 8 legs. And that, my friends, is how Odin got his famous steed, Sleipnir. Loki, always the cleverest one in the room, until he isn't. See, the trickster likes to believe he controls the game, that he's one step ahead, laughing while everyone else stumbles around in the dark. But there's a funny thing about playing tricks on fate. Eventually, fate plays tricks on you. Loki thought he was making a fool of that builder. He thought he'd set up an unbeatable deal, one that would leave him laughing at the gods' expense. But the thing about the trickster is this: they aren't the only clever ones. The giant was clever too. And suddenly, Loki was no longer the one in control. And what happens when the trickster loses the game? They don't fight. They don't stand their ground. No, they change shape. They adapt. They cheat the system again. Loki didn't try to outbuild the giant. He didn't try to fix his mistake the honorable way. No, he became something else. A mare, a lure, a distraction. And that's another thing about tricksters. They don't have fixed forms. They shift. They slip through the cracks. They survive. But here's the thing. Coyote stole fire and gave it to the people. Loki played tricks and got caught in his own web. But what if a trickster didn't have to do anything at all? What if they just threw a single stone into the water and let the ripples do all the work? That, my friends, is where Eris comes in. Eris, the goddess of discord, was not invited to the wedding of Peleus and Thetis. So she took an apple, golden, shining, perfect, and inscribed 3 little words: "For the fairest." Then she rolled it into the middle of the wedding feast and walked away. The moment Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite saw that apple, the fighting began. It's mine. No, I am the most beautiful. Step aside, you old hag. To settle the dispute, they chose a mortal, Paris of Troy, to decide. He picked Aphrodite, who promised him the most beautiful woman in the world. The only problem, that woman, Helen, was already married. And so, one stolen queen led to one war. One war led to one city in flames. And that is how Troy fell. All because Eris tossed an apple and let human nature do the rest. Coyote stole fire, but he gave it away. Loki played the game, but he had to change to survive. Eris didn't do anything. She didn't steal. She didn't fight. She didn't cheat. She tossed one little apple and let everyone else destroy themselves. That's the scariest kind of trickster, isn't it? The one who doesn't even need to lift a finger. Because humans, we don't need much help making a mess of things. We're perfectly capable of turning on each other. All we need is a little nudge. And that's the last thing to remember about the Trickster. Sometimes they help us grow, sometimes they help themselves, and sometimes they just want to watch us burn it all down. What do we take from all this? The Trickster is not your friend, not your enemy, not on anyone's side. He is chaos. He is change, and change is coming. Whether you like it or not, plans will fail. Order will crumble. Nothing stays the same forever. The only question is, how will you handle it? Will you be like Coyote, spreading the fire, making use of the change? Will you be like Loki, playing the game, shifting when you must? Or will you be like Eris, knowing full well how easy it is to throw the world into war? Something to think about. Now, who's got another log for the fire?